Hello, I'm Lori Waken with Grace Care, Personal Care and In-Home Services. It is no secret or surprise that as we age, as we travel through life, it would be the vast majority of our preference to do that at home, to age in place. And as a part of that, it's very important that we are as aware as possible of the services available to us in our local communities. One of the services that we have here in Enid and in other communities is that of Adult Protective Services. APS sometimes is misunderstood, and it's a very important and valuable service for many of us. And so today we've invited Esther Fischer and Ariane Leischer to visit with us a little bit about APS and the services they provide. So welcome, Esther and Ariane.
Thank you.
And just tell us a little bit in general about APS. What is the agency? What services do you provide?
Okay, well, Adult Protective Services is a division of the Department of Human Services. We investigate any allegations of abuse, neglect, or exploitation of vulnerable adults. That is anyone over 18 that we consider vulnerable or meets the definition of a vulnerable adult, but typically we do work with the 65 and over population.
Okay. So it's not an issue of someone who is within a certain income bracket or anything like that, or age bracket. It's just any adult that might be vulnerable in any way. So disabilities or age or level of physical or mental impairment or ability, that kind of thing.
Correct, and actually we see the whole socioeconomic levels that there could be from from low income to very wealthy individuals, because with the exploitation piece, that really comes into play for those that have a lot of resources.
Right. Explain a little bit. I was interested in visiting with you earlier, your motto. Tell us a little bit about your motto and what that means and how you kind of follow through in implementing that.
Motto is to respect, protect, and serve. Okay. So number one, we respect the individual with dignity, and we want them involved in decision making if at all possible. Protect is to make sure that they're safe in their environment and how we can help them be more safe in their home. And then to serve them, our greatest job is to develop a service plan with them to address their needs.
Okay. So. And I think through some of my experience in discussing with people and their perceptions of APS that maybe that's where it falls short a little bit in your commitment to respecting the individual and working with them to determine what is the safest and best maybe environment or situation for them to be in. I feel like sometimes folks have the perception that you're kind of a watchdog or someone that, you get a report and you go in and you maybe jerk grandma out of the house and stick her in the nursing home, and that's not actually any part of what you do. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, what we try to do is go in and just kind of assess the situation and see what the needs are in the home. And if there's one of the things I always want to do is make it very clear that I'm there to help. I'm not there to make anybody do things that they don't want to do, unless it's at the point in their life where they're not able to make those decisions for themselves anymore. But first and foremost, I want them to be involved in what in the service plan, as Esther was talking about, and the family to be involved as well, especially the family to be involved and make sure that they're a part of the solution or part of making sure that their family member is safe and protected.
Great, and I imagine it takes a lot of compassion and tact to be able to kind of come in and break down some of those walls of defensiveness that might come up from time to time. Tell us a little bit of how the process starts. When you say you come into a situation to kind of evaluate, how do you know to come into that situation? How do you get the information that leads you to make that first visit?
Well, we'll receive a report, and that either can be called in directly to our office or we do have a hotline service that's for after hours and weekends that some of our reports come through. And so what I do is screen those reports to determine, is this person really a vulnerable adult, and is there an actual allegation of abuse, neglect, or exploitation occurring? And if those two are met, then I determine what allegations there are and assign that referral to one of the workers to investigate. How we initiate the investigation is to go to that person's home, and the initial one is unannounced. That's just required. And sometimes that does upset the individual, the alleged victim that we're investigating. But we try to explain why we're there, that we're there to help them and to build a rapport with them so that we can get down to what's really going on and see how we can help.
See if there's validity to that or not. And now, do you find sometimes that there isn't, that maybe there's something else going on, that a report was made when really there isn't a situation to be concerned about at all? Does that?
Sometimes there's, when a report comes in, the person has a concern about the individual and they don't really maybe know the full story. They just want to make sure that this person is okay. So once we go out and do an investigation, we may find that there may not be any validity to what the concern was, and so we'll kind of go from there and see if they do need services, but there are times when they don't.
And at least, you know, I would imagine that's our hope, is that you go in and recognize that, no, everything's fine, but now this person knows that someone cares about them and that there are services available if they're ever needed. And so it's really a win-win.
Right, and there's been times where maybe the allegation was exploitation, say, and we go in there and that doesn't appear to be the issue, but maybe we see that there's some services we know of in the community that could help that person, and we'll say, do you know about this? And you know, and we're able to still offer them some services even if we're going to unsubstantiate the allegation.
Right. So it can be of a benefit even if there's not abuse or exploitation or that kind of thing.
We always try to offer services to anybody that we come in contact with.
So basically you're a resource pool for individuals, and you say it's mostly seniors, although you're available to folks in other age demographics and that kind of thing. So with the situation it is, with more and more seniors being isolated, with families who have moved off or just not remaining at home in a tight-knit family community the way they have in past generations, I can see it being a very valuable resource, and the importance of having any maybe negative stigma or misperceptions removed would be beneficial to those who actually could benefit from your services. What would you say would be a typical scenario or a type of individual that you could actually provide some services to? Maybe someone who has declined to a point that they are no longer able to make the decisions for themselves. Kind of walk us through what that would look like from beginning to end of receiving that case.
In a case like that, a lot of times we start off with what we call self-neglect, where someone, they may have dementia or some other kind of cognitive impairment that is, that's inhibiting them from really making decisions and doing what they need to do. And we'll go in and kind of assess that and see what's going on with them. A lot of times it is, especially for the older population, it's some dementia issues going on, and they may not even realize that they're forgetting things or forgetting appointments or maybe putting themselves in some dangerous situations because of the dementia that they're having. And so what we'll try to do is assess, you know, really how impaired they are to make decisions for themselves. And then of course if they have family, we'll try to bring in family and see what can be done about that. But really when there is a situation like that where they're not able to really make those decisions anymore, then we'll involve their physician as well and see what services need to be in place. And sometimes it can be as simple as they just need someone, a nurse, to come in and set up their medication for them and do whatever medical things that they need to do that they can still do at home. And if we can solve it that way, then that's really what we want to do, to just bring people into the home to help them. And
you can help them locate those resources and the options for. Great.
And
so
we're always looking for the least restrictive setting for that individual, and we know individuals do the best in their own home setting. So that is our goal always, is if they can remain at home and we can help set up the services to address the needs that they have, that's what we're going to look at first.
Well, we are definitely sister entities there, because that's what we at Grace Care do too, is aging at home, staying there as safely as possible with dignity and independence. And so We deeply appreciate what you all do. How long, I know I've visited with both of you a little bit, and we think about some of these agencies and their faceless names or entities working in our communities, and I've really enjoyed visiting with both of you. How long have each of you, Esther, you start, been with APS, and what kind of led you into the field?
I've been in Adult Protective Services for 5 years, but I have 16 years total in with DHS. I did family support services prior to that for 11 years, and that was eligibility for Medicaid, food stamps, daycare, and those type of programs. But I had a lot of older individuals on my caseload, and also individuals with disabilities. So my bachelor's degree is in social work, so I've always had kind of a heart for others and helping others, and also had a passion for our geriatric population. So I had thought about APS over the years, and I finally decided to put my name in the hat for that division and was transferred over into it, and I've really enjoyed it.
Well, good. What are some of the greatest blessings that you find in doing what you do?
Those times when you actually feel like you've helped to make an impact in someone's life. When you see an improvement in a situation, or someone's finally getting the services that they need, or you're able to stop what shouldn't be happening, if you're able to intervene if there is neglect or exploitation happening. So.
Yeah, and Ariane, same question I'm going to ask you. I'm always curious about why people do what they do.
Well, I've been with Adult Protective Services for a little over 2 years, and previously I had worked for DHS doing family support, as Esther did, kind of eligibility type work. I did that for about 6 years. And in between, I did other social work positions. I've worked with women who have post-traumatic stress disorder and all the issues that go along with that, and done some other kind of social work positions. But I have personal experience with elderly family members, and I know the need that's out there, and that's kind of brought my eye to the position when it came available.
Great. Could either of you share a scenario, without invading anyone's privacy or anything, that maybe made an impact on you, or that you feel was a good example of a way that you could help an individual who needed it?
Well, I have one, and although we always try to work towards having the individual remain in their home, in this situation, a nursing facility was actually the best option for this person, and it ended up being a really good outcome. She had needed to move in with a family member, and they kind of relegated her back to one bedroom, and were not treating her very kindly, were being verbally abusive, exploitive, and she just kind of felt trapped and isolated in their home. And when we visited with her, she was first scared to even think about nursing home, because she had somewhat of a misconception. She hadn't been one in probably several decades. And so the worker working with her said, well, would you be willing to at least go visit some with me? And she goes, okay, I can do that. So they went and looked at a few of them, and at one in particular, which is where she ended up deciding to go to, she was very impressed with the facility. She was very impressed with how friendly the staff was, and she saw the library there, and she loved to read, and she was, and then she finally asked the worker, you mean I could really get to stay here? She thought it was beyond her means. And they explained to her how Medicaid services she would be eligible for those, and that they would help her maneuver through that system. And she ended up moving into that facility and just thrived. She made friends. She loved to curl up in a chair in the library and read. And she had really, her personal care had been neglected a lot. They did her hair in the salon. Anyway, it was just it was a nice outcome.
Wonderful.
For her.
And that was her choice.
Yes.
I mean, you helped her to explore her options and allowed her to make her own independent choice. And so, well, that is lovely, and that had to be one of those days that you went home feeling really, really good about what you do.
Yeah.
Are there any things, or is there anything that either or both of you would like for the public to know, or wish the public was more educated about Adult Protective Services and what you do?
I think one of the biggest things when I go into a home, especially on the first visit when it's unannounced and people are scared and they don't really understand what is happening, I really want them to know that I'm there to help them. And I think that's the biggest thing, to connect them to services or maybe have a family meeting to involve everybody in the family to make some decisions that need to be made. But really the biggest thing is that I'm there to help them. I'm not there to force anything. I'm there to help.
Or to shame or condemn.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
Right, right. And Esther, anything to add to that?
I would just be aware that we're here, and don't be afraid to call us if you have any concerns whatsoever. You may not have a lot of information, but if there's concerns, call us. We can go check on it. And
tell me about the confidentiality aspect. If someone calls, say I'm a neighbor and I'm concerned about the little gentleman who lives down the street, I'm not sure if he has family, but I just have some worries. Should I call? Should I wait and see? What would you recommend?
I would say call, because as a neighbor, as a church member, as someone that just knows them in some shape or form, you may be the only one that's going to call in on their behalf. Okay. And if there's nothing valid there that's really happening, we can still offer services to that person and hopefully help them. If there is something going on, hopefully we can intervene and help them with that.
Now, what happens if I really don't want that gentleman to know that I've called? And what if it comes to a court situation and I'm called as a witness and I have that fear? Well, tell me about that a little bit.
The reporter's information is kept strictly confidential. A person can call in anonymously, although we do prefer to have their name and number just so we can call them back in case we have additional questions. If through our reports that are submitted to the district attorney's office, because all of our findings are, the reporter's information is not included in that.
Okay, that's good to know.
If our casework has to be subpoenaed for any other legal cases, the reporter's information is redacted.
Okay.
So it is kept confidential, and we hold to that very strictly.
Good. A lot of safety for anyone reporting if they have any qualms at all about becoming involved. It can be completely confidential. That is very good to know.
And we also hold confidentiality for any collaterals that we deal with if they do not want the, client we're working with to know that we've spoken with them.
So there really is no harm. There's no threat in making that call. So now we're to, where do we call? What is your number? How do we get a hold of you?
It's 548-2100.
Okay.
That's the Garfield County Department of Human Services office. And when you call that, just ask for an APS worker.
Okay.
And you will get one of the staff to speak with.
Great. Is that an around-the-clock number, or is there another way after hours to get a hold of you, or a hotline number maybe? And there may be some, I would start with that number, and I'm sure you'll be directed if it's after hours.
Right.
And so how many folks work in your office right now? How many agents do you have?
We have 3 field workers.
Okay.
In the Garfield County office.
Great.
So.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today. I could just sit and visit with you all day long. We deeply appreciate what you do to enhance the lives of the adults in our community, especially the vulnerable. And I have this particular heart for seniors, so really appreciate what you all do for them. And so please call. If you have any questions about APS, feel free to call the number there on your screen. You can also call Grace Care at 237-6911 or look us up on the internet at www.gracecareok.com.